Hi, welcome to my presentation. We will be starting soon. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my presentation today. This is the third session of how we interview users and bring their ideas to UI UX design table. When we look back to the different sessions we had, in session one, we talk about environment for interviewing channels, number of interviews needed, selecting and scheduling participants, duration of interviews, interview guidelines, interviewing. These things we discussed in session one. Then in session two, we had a case study on music lovers. Now, session three. Today we are talking about language and translation, note taking and transcription, audio video recording and streaming, then legal formalities and white labeling. So these are mainly the peripherals, or what are the arrangements or organizing factors connected to UX research. Because we discussed about how to interview and how to prepare the interview guideline. The discussion part and interviewing part we already discussed. But here we are discussing the organizing part, or what are the things to be done mainly on language and translation, or note taking, transcription, recording, and legal formalities. So all these discussions or all the information I am giving is connected to open innovation journey. So as I said earlier, the depth interviews are connected to ideation and concept and market feedback. These are the areas we mainly use depth interviews as a methodology in UX research. So go through my presentation and watch carefully and like, comment, and share to your colleagues. Of course, you can watch the latest trends in UX in our newsletter. We invite all of you to subscribe that. Okay, coming back to our topic: language, translation, recording, note taking, transcription, legal formalities, etc., etc. So why it is important? Most of the people think that I will do a good interview or good research discussion. I will prepare a good discussion guide and do the discussion, but they are least bothered about these factors. But being a practitioner, I always recommend these factors are very, very important. Being an academician, okay, of course, you may not be aware of, or you may not be think about these factors, because it may not come to a theoretical side of research. But as a practitioner, this is very important, because think about, you are doing a research. What is happening actually? In a brief sense, you are searching for people. As a researcher, you are searching for people, then find someone based on some segmentation. So what according to your objectives, then discuss based on your discussion guide and location, etc., where you conduct the discussion, then do the analysis. These are three simple steps in any research. Because this is a research flow: the search for people and fix the interview, then do the interview, then analysis. Okay, Actually, what is happening here? Look to that. During the discussions, you are not directly taking the discussion happened or what are the feedbacks from the participant of the discussion to analysis, because it's not possible. Why? Think about, you are discussing in different cities globally, in different locations. You may not be un- you can't understand their languages. So actually there should be a translation is required, because you can engage the interviewer in native language, but you, as an analyst, you can't understand what they are discussing. So language and translation is important, because that is the input as an analyst you have. Think about a client. This is the input, translated input you have. So the quality of translation should be in a high standard, otherwise you will be missing a lot of from the discussion. Then note taking and transcription, still because of the language you can't understand it properly or understand what they are discussing. So the transcription, note taking, these are your input actually. As an analyst or as a client, your input is translated input, not the real discussion. That is the reason these are important. Then recording. So you may not be watching all the interviews. You even though you are watching the interview, you can't understand it. You may not be watching the interview. So the recording in a translated form as well as in original form. This is your input. Then legal formality. So as a practitioner, I always put these things are very, very important, because this is your input for analysis. Think, actually the discussion is not your input for the analysis. Okay, based on discussion, you are analyzing, that's correct, but as an analyst, you can't watch or you can't understand the discussion. As a client, you can't understand the discussion. Your input is translated discussion or transcribed or notes taken during the discussion. These are your input for analysis. That's why this should be as equal as interview. Otherwise, you will be losing lot of things, and the quality degrades. So whatever may be the discussion you had is a beautiful discussion. You prepare a beautiful discussion guide, and discussion was great. But if the translation is not up to standard, you won't get the proper input. This is the problem we are most of the interviewers are facing, most of the analysts is facing day to day. Okay, that's why this is important. Keep these as give much importance as equal as preparing the discussion guide and conducting the discussions. I recollect again, maybe academician may not be interested in these factors, or most of the people think, okay, what is this? This is just a translator. Anybody can translate. What is this? Anybody can take. No, no. You have to practice. You have to follow some standards for this to make it accurate. I will discuss all these factors one by one. Okay, language and translation. So here we can discuss about language for discussion. What are the language we have to use? Simultaneous translation, language for not talking. So how the language is important through these three factors. Language and translation. Why it is important? As I said, we have a lot of languages, lot of dialects. People will use their own language and their own dialects. We can't restrict people to use our language, because they may not be knowing that language. At the same time, they are not comfortable in that language. They can't express their ideas. They can't open up, because we have to give freedom to the users they to use their own language. Think about, you are conducting 10 interviews in Tokyo, another 10 interviews in Shanghai, 10 in London, and 10 in Delhi, 10 in Jakarta. Think about what is happening. These interviews will be conducted, they are on native language. Maybe you are comfortable in one or two languages. Otherwise, you can't understand what they are talking about. So they should be use or let the respondent to use their own language, and you have to use translation. How to translate? Then interviewer should use native language. That is very important thing. Don't use a interviewer through translator. That is very important because interviewer should closely discuss with the participant. So there is we should not, while the discussion, we should not engage a translator between the interviewer and interviewee. Then the entire interview will get spoiled. So that is not acceptable. Interviewer should be from native language. They have to use the participant dialect, especially the dialect level, not just a language. The dialect also they have to use. Otherwise, they can't understand better. Because still, I feel that people speaking in Shanghai and people speaking in Beijing have some difference, or people speaking in Delhi and people speaking in Mumbai is different. So, better to use native language interviewer. That is a must. You have to find these people for as an interviewer. Then, while conducting native language interviews, what is happening? There is a role for simultaneous translation. Otherwise, you can't understand what is happening. Simultaneous translator means the translator translate word by word with its own expressions. If they can include gestures and postures also, that's great. That way, the translator translate what the uh, respondent says. They translate both the what interviewer says as well as respondent says, because you have to understand the question and answers. So simultaneous translator will be watching the interview closely and translate. Simultaneous translator can operate from interview room, sit with the interviewer and hear what they are talking, then translate, or in an exclusive room. So they may be watching through closed circuit TV and translate what they are hearing and watching. At the same time, nowadays it will be interview will be streamed to translators table, and translator can translate in online. These are the three ways that simultaneous translator can work. Then come to note taking. What should be the language should be used for note taking? Actually, the quality of notes is depends on from which position you are taking the notes. Here you can see note taking directly from interview in native language. So the note taker also very close to the interview, and note taking directly from the interview in native language that's having highest quality because they can absorb whatever they are discussing. Then take as a notes. In the second stage, that is, we can say that filtered stage, note taker takes notes from simultaneous translator during the interview. So note taker what is hearing what simultaneous translator is saying, because the note taker also can't understand the discussion, is sitting with the simultaneous translator translating whatever she is watching or she's hearing from the interview to English or whatever language required. If Chinese is translated to English, that in English, the note taker is hearing what the translated version, and note taker is taking notes from the translated voice. That is a little bit after filtering. So anyway, the translator will filter something. That's a human habit. He can't translate 100% from the interview stage. Best translator will translate maximum. Some translator, what I notice is they will translate maximum including the definitions, because there are some local words they will use. They will explain the meaning of that local words inside the translation. We can say is in a brackets, which explain that for a sometimes they said grants, or what is grants, this is a pocket money given to kids, something like that. They will give the definition also during the translation. It's a very, very beautiful on simultaneous translators we work with. So they translate it to that level, so it's very clear. And but some translators give just a gist. That is not the process. That's actually interpreter. Interpreter is not the right person. You have to use simultaneous translator. Interpreter, the problem with interpreter is they understand what they are speaking and get the meaning, then reproduce. So actually, this very a lot of things you missed in between. Actually, we need word-to-word translate. That is why I call it as simultaneous translate. There are a lot of people highly specialized in this area, not like a tourist translator. The interpreters use while you go somewhere as a tourist. You can't understand their language. You may be using some interpreters. So you can, in that case, you can repeat the question. In that case, you can ask again a lot of things. But here, you have no control on the interview. Interview will be continuing, and translator should translate simultaneously, word by word. Okay, you have to use that type of translators. In some countries, what I notice is simultaneous translator is costlier than interviewer, because it's a very highly specialized job, highly specialized with high concentration, and it's not easy. Otherwise, you try to translate from one language to another while you hearing a news in television. So try to translate. Still, think about, there are two people discussing. You have to change the tone, because otherwise, while you hear translation, you can't understand whether the interviewer is saying or interviewee is saying. So they had to change the tone with the interviewer and interviewee. So that's also that's high level professions are there to do that. So take the notes from the translator level. That is a second stage. Then again you can filter and note taking from the recorded interviews. That's also possible. So quality of the note taking depends on these three levels, from where the note taker is taking the notes. So note taker can take directly from interviews, from the translator, or record. Then comes to the next point, that is called note taking and transcription. How to take notes. We discussed about from which position we have to take notes. And here I'm talking about how to take notes and how to transcribe. So we'll be talking about templates for note taking, adding timestamp, emotions of participants, hashtags, mentions, using color codes. Okay, this is a template. Based on our experience, we use this type of template for interviews. We suggest client to use this type of interviews. This is a timestamp is there. If you use spreadsheet, the timestamp can be generated automatically. So there's a timestamp starting from 0000 when they start the interview. Then the seconds are noted. Then it's a question or answer. Question is always coming from the translator, and question is always coming from the interviewer, and the answer is coming from the participant. You have to mark it as in a different rows. Then the notes, the what they are talking about. Then mark the emotions. You can use smileys. So in every sentence the participant is saying, you can add emotions, whether they are in the positive mood or negative mood or doubting or whatever emotions they have. You can add emotions. Then you can add hashtags and mentions. The note taker has to do that. And highlight with color. For example, in this case, not a good one. I feel you can present it better way. So not a good one. This highlighted word. So in that way. So what we suggest is use timestamp, use colors to highlight different colors you can use emotions, express emotions. Then hashtags and mentions. You can create hashtags. Mainly we suggest to hashtag using adjectives. What the respondent is talking about is a good idea. It's a bad idea. That type of adjectives you always use as a hashtags. Then mentions is the nouns we can use as mentions. This is the practical way of taking notes. How closely you are taking notes to the interview is important. As I said earlier, this is your input for analysis. So don't compromise to the quality of the note taking. You may think that, okay, I can watch the interview. You can't watch the interview. Even though you watch the interview, you can't understand it because it's in a different language. So the notes is the only input, or transcribed voice is the only input you have. So that's why don't think that even though they take some notes or they give some notes, that is enough. No, because this is your input. As an analyst, this is your input for analysis. So your quality of the analysis, whatever you have done so far, you done lot of effort to select a person for the interview, lot of effort to create the guidelines, lot of effort to plan everything, but at the end notes is bad. You don't have proper input for analysis. The entire output is not giving anything. As a huge effort will become a waste because of these factors. Then, what is the difference between note taking and transcription? Note taking is summarizing the responses without losing the content from the participant. This can be prepared during the interview or after the interview. So, if a note taker is watched closely to the direct interviews and he's summarizing, every answer is summarized, every question is summarized, that's called note taking. Transcription is a word by word response to the from of the participant. So he's not summarizing. While transcribing, it can't summarize every expressions or every word, every fillers, every even gestures and posters to be mentioned in this transcription. Usually, this is prepared after the interview because during the interview it is not possible to do everything like. But we will be using. Sometimes we will be using the shorthand writers. I think you nowadays the profession is not there. The people are not practicing that, but in the old generation there are a lot of shorthand writers. They will take it in an abbreviated form and expand later. So if that person is available, you can take transcription during the interview. But as a note taker, you can't write everything because speaking is very fast. You can't write at that speed. Uh, so note taking is better. And if the note taker is a native, knows native language, then he can watch again the interview and add to notes. Otherwise, the transcribed voice can use for analysis. Anyway, make sure that these things are close to the interviews. Maybe you conducted 1 hour interview and the entire notes is a 1 page notes in 5 minutes. Entire thing vanished. So you are just getting a 1 page notes after conducting a 1 hour interview. If that person is an analyst, then it's okay. But as a note taker, he will give 1 page notes, then you spoil everything. Okay, then how to organize this? So as I said, in note taking, directly from interview in native language, do it from interviewer. So sit with interviewer and do it. And the next stage what we discuss, it's from simultaneous translation during the interview. Do it from translator. Sit with translator and do it. The third is from recorder, do it from replay. These are the three stages, as I explained there. These are the three stages of notes. The same way, in three stages, you can organize the note taking and transcription also. The same way, either you can use transcription or notes. Sorry. Some people, some projects, what we do the transcription then notes. In some projects we do transcription and notes together. Uh, that is also a good way, transcription and notes together. That is, first you take the notes, then check with the transcription and do it properly, or first do the transcription then do the notes. It depends on you in what way you require. Some people need a notes immediately, okay, that's fine, then do the transcription. Some people say that I need a more accurate notes from the transcription. But actually, I'm not talking about which one to be done first. In some cases, only one is required. Transcription itself is required, because if you can analyze it properly, transcription is itself is required. Not a note taking. When you take note taking, that is again a filtered version. Transcription is not a filtered version, and note taking is a filtered version. So you already filtered the interview using the translator, then again you are filtering with note taker. So you can see how much data you are losing from the real interview. So in discussions, then filtered by the translator, then filtered by the note taker. So that's why experienced people always use transcription, because one filtering we can avoid is we are more close to the interview. Only in the second level, even you transcribe from the translator, you are in the second level. But think about your translate. So you are taking notes from the translator, you are in the third level. So actually, you are losing a lot of information. That's why people say that we need transcription, not taking. Note taking is actually is analyzed version. So note taker also apply her mind and prepare the notes. Okay, then how we can do that? So as a human, we can use a note taker. As a human note taker, the person can translate and transcribe. The problem is when the transcription comes in, it will take 10 times. The time is 10 times. That is, if there is a 1 minute discussion, it will take 10 minutes to complete transcription. It's a 1 hour discussion, it needs at least 10 hours to complete. So it takes time. It is not a immediate thing. You can take notes immediately, but not transcription. As we discuss, transcriptions always need, or we have to watch, replay, and finalize. So needs 10 times time. Then if you use software, what is happening? Translate to transcribe. There are softwares available, but it's not accurate. So it's a horrible in most of the cases, because of these type of dialects, and participant will use multiple languages. They will mix the languages during the discussion. We can't say that don't mix the language. You have to use Queen's English. We can't instruct like that. So they will mix the language, and more than that, sometimes they will express using gestures and poses, because they will just waving their heads and say that no, there's some face expressions to communicate that won't come in softwares to translate. So using softwares is not accurate, but it's in time. It's automated and it's in time. Then it's better go for hybrid. What is hybrid? Transcribe from the simultaneous translator. That is more accurate even after regenerating by the translator, then transcribed using software. No extra time needed. So that is, you are using this software, transcribing software from translator's voice. Well, that means that software is working with the simultaneous translator. Even the simultaneous translator is watching the interview and translates. One filtering is there, and the software transcribes. What is the advantage of this? Advantage is translator won't use multi-language. Only interviewer and participant will use multi-language and mix of languages and giving expressions, emotions, etc. in their face. A lot of things, lot of ways they will communicate. But transcriber explain all those things. Even it's a laughing or the person respondent is expressing no to the idea. So these things the translator explains or translates not only the text, the translator translates emotions and face expressions and gestures and poses, etc. They will reproduce. It's something like a football commentary or narrations in a football match. So they will explain everything, then use the software, then their voice is easily recognized by the software, so that software work more accurately to the translator with the translator, because the same voice is coming, so that will be more accurate than using software directly to the discussion. So the method is transcribe from simultaneous translator. So simultaneous translator express and explain what is happening in the discussion, and from simultaneous translator's voice the software works and it will generate the transcription. So errors are very less, even though you can go through the transcribed version again. One error we always come across is because of the same person, the software won't dictate question and answer. It will be right continuously, because you have to mark which one is question, which one is answer. That's also required, because the same person is reproducing question and answer as a simultaneous translator. Their voice is same, so most of the software dictate as the same person is speaking. So that correction may be required, but it's very near to translator's voice and is more accurate. And another advantage is it need not require another 1:10 time. The 10 hours is not required for 1 hour, because it's directly translating and transcribing. Simultaneous translator is doing live during the interview, so software also work live with simultaneous translation. So no extra time is required. That's why we recommend this method nowadays, because we can use technology plus human. Then recording and streaming, how it works: camera, voice, then it will be streamed to translator. Maybe translator is watching it using closed circuit TV, or from through online he has to watch the original one. Then these visuals will be transmitted to client, and the original voice also will be transmitted to client, and translated voice also to be transmitted to client. As a client room or the analyst room, you can watch both original voice and translated voice. Which one client prefers, they can use it. This is a method. So this is, I'm not explaining much on this. This is just using internet and closed circuit TV operations we had to use. So people should have, the interviewer should have this facility. You can set from any location, that is from home you have to transmit, from a lab you can transmit, or from any place you have to transmit using internet. So that is a must. So anyway, we have to prepare, we have to record it, the interview, and the interview get transmitted to translator or translator room as well as client room. Translator translate and transmit to client room. So there are two versions client can see, original and translate. Okay, this nowadays is very easy. You can use any softwares. A lot of meeting softwares are available. You can use meeting softwares, or there are exclusive softwares for research that's also available. Anything you can use. Always use streaming softwares, that gives more accuracy than conferencing softwares. That is, what I mean is when you use WhatsApp or when you use the similar softwares, Skype or similar software, there may be a delay in the process and lacking the quality. They will be streaming down, or they will be reducing the quality of the recording, quality of the visuals to make it faster. But if you use web streams, it will be having little bit delay, but the recording will be accurate. For example, the software called live stream, then another software is Manycam. These things are used in research. In Manycam, what the advantage is, you can use multiple cameras. In sometimes you need multiple camera, one towards the face of the participant, another towards if you are using, if you are showing some idea in paper, so you have to focus that another camera to that, because you have to be clear, or while recording you have to be clear that which idea is showing and what the person is discussing. So multi-camera will be used. In that case, Manycam is a good software. This is the way. Two camera, always use two cameras during the interview. One is towards face and another is towards the stimulus what you are showing. Okay, then it's in in picture and streaming to client room. That's where it should be recorded and streamed. Then come to legal formalities. This is a huge topic because you are talking to a person. You are forced to follow lot of legal compliance here. Most of the researchers are not aware about these things, and most of the clients also not aware about these factors. They will end up legal issues at the end. What are the things you have to take care in legal aspects? First, you have to follow GDPR compliance. Everybody knows GDPR. Otherwise, you can talk to your attorneys. They will explain what is GDPR. So everybody should know, should follow GDPR compliance. Then regional laws. GDPR is a global thing, but mainly talking about Europe. But again, we had to follow regional laws. APP is Australian privacy principles. APPI is Japanese, that is Act for Personal Privacy Information. Then BDST is a German. So every country have their own regional laws on privacy. You have to follow that, because you have to follow law of land where you are conducting the interview. If you are conducting interview in Tokyo, you have to follow APPI. When you conduct interview in Sydney, you have to follow APP. When you conduct interview in Frankfurt, you have to follow BDST. So this is a must. So you have to follow these laws. Then take statutory license for UX research based on regional. Sometimes some countries you have to take licenses, especially if you are testing something, especially in cosmetics or food. If you are testing some of your prototypes, of course you need licenses. In most of the countries, food and cosmetics needs licenses. But in some countries, we even research also need license permission. So you have to take that. So follow this. Then in your website or in generally, you have to release white papers. What are the white papers you have to release? White papers on data privacy, white paper on data security, white paper on quality policy, and white paper on process of UX research. So anybody can refer your website and understand what you are doing during the interview from these white papers. How you keep the privacy, how you keep the security as in general, how you keep the quality, and what's the process you are doing. So this to be must. Then during the interview, you have to follow these documents. You have to comply with these documents. This NDA is non-disclosure agreement with interviewer. Interviewer also should sign NDA, That may be a project base. One when you use 10 interview with one interviewer, you have to sign only one NDA. Then NDA with participants. Every participant has to sign NDA. So that's also a must. Non-disclosure agreement of mutual understanding. That is a must. We have to sign with participant. This is the legal formality we have to do. Then ethics and confidentiality statement. That also most of the time that will be included in NDA. Otherwise, you can sign it separately. Ethics and confidentiality statement. Both of us, we will be. We should have. What are the ethics we are keeping? Then permission to share stories. So when they explain a lot of stories, we have to get permission to share stories and data with client. So as a participant, the person is sharing to interviewer, but interviewer should have the permission to share to client. These steps is very important in when we conduct in Europe, but in Asian countries is not so important. But in Europe, Australia, this is very important step. If you don't have this permission, you are not permitted to share. That is, as an interviewer is not permitted to share what interviewee talks to or responded to. And you are not permitted to streaming. You are not permitted to recording if the interviewer is not giving permission to share these stories. So he is ready to discuss, but think a situation, he's ready to discuss, but he is not interested to share to others. What is going to happen? So you can't stream, you can't record. Okay. In some laws not permitting streaming also, because streaming is live, and in some laws we had to take this permission before the interview and after the interview. So before the interview you had to take permission, and after the interview you had to reconfirm the permission. Still the respondent can deny the sharing after the interview. Then what is happening? You can't use that interview, you can't share that interview. That's a reason in some countries it's streaming is not permitted. So you have to follow that, because after the interview you are streaming live. Then after the interview the respondent feels that I'm not interested to share these stories to anyone. Then you already streamed. So that is not the way. If that law is there in that country, then you have to follow that. Especially in Germany, that type of laws are there, so they won't permit. You have to take explicit permission from the respondent, and streaming should be delayed only after getting the permission. Okay, that's we have to follow the law of land. Then the next one is permission for audio video recording, streaming, and reuse. As I explained, take separate permission for telecast. If you are telecasting to public, live or in future, if you want to use that story for in your website, you want to use that story publicly, you have to take separate permission for that. So take separate permission for telecasting to public. Permission for statutory disclosure of adverse event. If some adverse event the respondent is sharing, that is, think about it, you are doing a discussion on cosmetics. When I use these cosmetics, these things happened, and I met with my doctor, and doctor give medicines to cure from that. That's an adverse event happened in the past to the participant. In most of the countries, there is a law. You have to report that. If any respondent explains this type of adverse event, we have a statutory binding to report this adverse event to government authorities. So that is the law above the permission given by the participant. Participant says no, but you have to explain that there is a statutory law in this country. If you explain any adverse event, you have to report it to concerned authorities. That is a legal binding from law of land. So we have to explain that. So even though you deny, we will be, if the participant deny the interview, you need not share anything. Still, the interviewer has a responsibility to report the adverse event to the authorities. So that should be explained here. So these are the documents we have to take from the participant. Even if you're conducting interview with the kids, there are a lot of other laws will be implied. So you follow the law of land. If you have any, I can discuss a lot of things on these legal formalities, because each country have their own laws. Because of my experience, I faced with a lot of statutory provisions in each countries. If you are conducting a research and you need guidance on these topics while conducting the research, you fix an appointment with me, then we can talk. I will guide you. So what to do. This is important. So follow general laws, release white papers, and take the documents during the interview. So this may not be a classroom exercise. Think about, if you are learning research from a university, you won't learn these type of things. This you have to learn from field. This is so important while organizing. As a project manager, if you are conducting UX research, while we conduct UX research in any country, you have to follow these legal things. Otherwise, you will be in trouble. You or your company will get huge fines by violating these laws. Okay. Then masking. Oh, that is up to you whether you have to mask the brand or not. Mask the client name and brand during the discussion and while showing the designs to avoid skewness. We always advise to mask these brands in the product. However, it depends on your project objective. Some projects design is suggested you have to show the brand of this company, that company. So in that case, when you show the brand, the products from one company, and you are showing the products from the competitor, then you have to show the brands. But it's better to mask brands. Again, it depends on your design. Okay, I'm done. The takeaways. So always keep the importance of these factors. I think now you got the importance of language and translation, because that is the input you have. Note-taking, translation, that's also input you have. Audio visual record, these are three things are input you have for analysis. You don't have, keep in mind that you don't have the interview in front of you, the discussion in front of you. You only have these things in front of you for analysis. So how much you can keep these three things close to the real interview, that gives quality, gives importance to that level. Okay. Language and translation, note-taking and transcription, audio visual record. So you can go, you can learn about these factors again and again, but how closely you are keeping it. Maybe you need a experienced person as a consultant, because most of the UX designers won't have any experience on doing the research. So research is another area, design is another. So research will test your design. So researcher is different and designer is different. So in that case, designer knows what are these things. But if you are, as a designer, you are going to do these things, you may not have any idea about these factors to be followed. But if you're conducting 10 interviews as a designer, you can go to field and do the interview if you're comfortable in the language. But I'm talking about a research doing globally in multi countries, multi cities. Then you have a centralized analysis you required. Think about, visualize that scenario and give importance to these factors. Then legal formalities, as I explained, of course, even though a researcher, as a client or the designer, most of the people I interact with, they have no idea about the legal formalities to be followed during the research. Nowadays, privacy is the utmost importance in any country, so we can't violate. It will be ended up in huge legal issues, huge penalties. In millions. I know that in Australia, or in Germany, or Japan, if you violate this year, the fine is in millions. So You have to follow the legal formalities. Then the actual takeaways is the conduct UX interviews in native language, use simultaneous translator, take notes on each UX interview with timestamp, emotions, hashtags, mentions, and color codes. Hybrid method is better for transcription. Stream original and translator versions for viewers. Follow legal formalities, release white papers, document the statutory agreements for each UX interviews, mask the client brand and name if needed. These are the takeaways. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Questions? Of course, you can fix discussion with me by scanning this QR code at any time. At any point of UX research, we can discuss and we will guide you how to do that. Give questions in the comment box. I will answer now or later. Thank you. See you next time.